Welcome, everyone. This is going to be an amazing show. Every now and then we bring you a thought leader show, and not only our EWA ladies, but leaders who are iconic leaders around the world. And today we are featuring Margery Kraus. She is the founder and executive chairman of APCO Worldwide. APCO Worldwide is a advisory and advocacy communications consultancy. Remarkable firm. I consider myself very honored to be on the International Advisory Board of APCO Worldwide. You're going to learn from Margery about what she's done for the past decades. She is truly an iconic leader. We're going to learn so much from her today. I'm so glad you're with us. I'm Lorraine Siegel. I'm the founder, chairman, and CEO of the Exceptional Women Awardees Foundation. Why did I start this foundation? Our mission is to enable high-level, high-potential women to reach their dreams. And the reason is I never had a mentor. All the way through my early career as a lawyer, then as a business leader and CEO of a number of companies, even as a board director, I never had a mentor or a guide to help me on my way. And I wanted to be sure that women who walk the road less traveled as I have would always have a group of women leaders around them to help them reach their dreams. And that's exactly what we do at EWA. And as I said, we have iconic world leaders with us. Margery Kraus is just one of those amazing people. And I want to show you the impact she has had on the world stage. Let's see a few of her speeches.
I think it's important that we as women bring ourselves, our whole selves to our jobs.
When you start a firm, one of the great blessings you have is you get to pick the people you work with. And so over time, they not only become your colleagues, but they become your, in some ways, mentors or people you learn from. And then you also get to share lots of things with them. And some of those people even become your friends.
Being a woman and starting a business is a challenge by itself, but when you try to do that on a global basis, it's even more challenging. I think we sometimes forget how the rest of the world sees us and look to America for a spirit of global optimism and American entrepreneurship. This is a time of great challenge to that notion, but it's one really worth fighting to keep.
You want to have great employees and you want people to buy your products or love your company, you have to answer this question about purpose. And I think that that is what companies in China need to think about, just like the companies around the world are thinking about.
Welcome, Margery. So happy to have you with us on our show.
Glad to be here, Lorraine. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Tell us a little bit about your early career. How did you become so fearless? And then how did you start APCO Worldwide?
Well, my early career is always a bit of a shock to people because I was a high school civics teacher. And, going from there to a company of 1,000 people has been quite the journey. So it's been interesting and fun and sometimes very stressful. But so I basically believed in experiential learning. And instead of being in the classroom, I helped to start a foundation called the Close-Up Foundation. And so I was very fortunate to follow a dream and a passion and help to have Close-Up now has 1 million students that have been through it. It's a week in Washington, and young people learn to find their voice, which has probably never been as important as it is now. And one thing kind of led to another, and I just became, I guess, better known and connecting dots for people who needed things from people who had ideas, and that's what led to the founding of APCO. But it was a journey.
No kidding. Margery, what is the competitive advantage of APCO? There are many communications consultancies. What do you guys do better than anyone else?
I think what we really do is, I'd say when we started this, there were two founding principles for me. One was that we would look at things in an integrated way, that people who did either communications or lobbying or strategy or grassroots, they were all separate firms. Nobody kind of looked at things in a holistic way. And I thought it was very important to be able to do that. And so APCO takes a very holistic view of somebody's problem or opportunity and tries to not be wedded to selling one tactic or another, but looking at what is actually going to deliver what the clients need. And that I was surprised that that was such a big difference in the beginning. Now, a lot of people are doing that, but it's really built into our DNA to be very eclectic in how we approach things. And the second thing was being local. I think that we were never international with a center and spokes. We were always global. And that's why I say global, because you can't be global and deliver good service unless you have really good local operations. And I think those two things, having very bespoke solutions for clients and being able to have the peripheral vision that helps them understand, especially if they're doing business in more than one market, of how what they say is going to resonate in all their markets. So I think those are two real advantages.
They are indeed. And I want to encourage our audience to bring some questions to us. You have a unique opportunity to have Margery answer your question live. So do put them in the comments or the chat or wherever you're watching our program. Margery, you have walked where very few women have walked before and gone where people fear to tread, in actual fact, in your global local operations. Could you talk a little bit about when you first went to places like China and Saudi Arabia and other locations in the world, which were sort of groundbreaking in a way?
Well, in 2 years, APCO will be 40 years old. It's hard for me to believe that. And it was mostly built organically. So we went in these markets not really knowing anybody or very much and built our firms locally. And then, everything was connected. And the reason I say that is our second office for APCO, 1988. So you have to kind of put your historic hat on, because most people watching probably weren't around then, was Moscow, and where nobody was. And I think I learned a lot from that experience. That was the time when there was perestroika and things were opening up, very different than today's environment. But it was also the first time that people were doing real business. And there was a real interest in trying to connect with the West. And I think, we learned a lot about markets in transition. And if there is anything that has helped us, it's having this kind of open mind about when we go into a place, we're not trying to replicate what we did in the last place. We're trying to understand of the kinds of services we offer, the kind of approach we take. What are those elements that would help advance a market or advance the cause of a client in that market, and not try to have one size fits all. And I think that kind of flexibility is not only needed, but it's also respect. It's respect for the local market, its differences, its similarities, and the fact that some markets are just ahead of other markets, and being able to take the best of what we know how to do and be able to advance that really is part of the success of it. And it also made me kind of fearless. I think after what I saw early in my career, you just decide that you're all in.
Oh, you sure are. So when you were in Russia in those very early years, you must have met some very interesting people, because entrepreneurs were just evolving from that very different kind of environment.
Well, some of the people that we read about later who became oligarchs were just leaving professions in the theater, driving cabs, selling computers out of their trunks. It was a bit of the Wild West. But these were very smart people and very ambitious people. And when the opportunities came, I was always struck by how much intuitive knowledge they had and how quick they learned about business. It was very interesting and exciting. It also kept you on your toes, because I think there was an atmosphere then there and now in other places in the world that when you have a window of opportunity, if you don't take advantage of it when it's there, it goes away. And so everybody's kind of in a hurry to get the very best they can. And it also creates a sense of urgency on the part of the company and the services you provide. And for some people that live in maybe slower parts of the world, it was a real adjustment to know, yes, they're serious. They need it now. They need it fast, and they need it done right.
Yeah, so Margery, you moved into China pretty early on as well. And obviously, the relationship between the US and China, Nixon opened up China, and look where we are today. Things are a little rocky at the moment. So, how do you manage and maneuver that when you have a very significant office in China now?
Well, we have 3 offices in China, and we've been there since 1997. And there have been ups and downs. And I think that what we try to do is to work through those ups and downs, to be honest. I don't want to call them brokers, but create some sense of realism on the part of the companies coming in to what it takes to survive in that market, to create win-win situations with the people in power without giving up your assets, and to see how you build a sustainable business. And it's the same thing, oddly enough, for a lot of the Chinese companies that are coming out, trying to work in the U.S. as a Chinese company or in Europe, and some of the same rules prevail. We did a study not too long ago that the most successful Chinese companies in the U.S. are the ones that hire locally and try to understand what it is to be a good corporate citizen here. The same rules apply in reverse, and so you just learn a lot in this give and take. And now that things are really tough, it creates what's a lot more opportunity for us, but for our clients, it creates very tricky situations. And people want to stay in the market, but they want to protect what they have, and they want to do that for the long term. So, we help them with their China plus one strategy, that is to diversify a little bit but not leave. We help them understand what the government is thinking about certain things so they can figure out how they can operate in situations like that. And for the companies here, we also that come to the U.S., we also are quite honest about what it takes to be successful here, and try to help them with a path forward. So it's common sense in a lot of ways, but common sense that is underscored by a lot of geopolitical knowledge. And we have wonderful teams of people who do this, who come from all different backgrounds. And that's another way we are able to add value. We have people who came from business, from government, from policy, from media, from NGOs, from, when I say we have a prism, we really have a prism. And sometimes our own teams, the debates we have internally about what advice to give a client helps us give the best possible advice.
Yeah, Margery, I found this to be a remarkable achievement. I remember I took a group of women leaders to Israel, and you arranged an incredible series of meetings for us there. And now you have been for many years very active in Saudi Arabia and UAE and other parts of the Middle East. And you've been able to transcend politics, gender, all of those things to be successful. How has that worked?
I think at the end of the day, I guess I see the good in people. But at the end of the day, most of these countries are trying to find their way on a global stage. They're also trying to do the best they can for their own citizens. They're dealing with a lot of legacy issues from the past and some of their own making, but they're generally trying to move the countries in the right direction. And I think that we have kind of an independent perspective that we can give them. We can be honest about what we think will work and not work. We can tell them what we think without fear of recourse. I mean, they can always not use our advice. But also, I think people see us as being honest about those things and respect that. And I think it's the respect more than the gender or the politics that helps you be successful. I think you have to be seen as being committed to providing honest advice and substantive advice, getting the best possible people together.
Yep, and I think that, it's underneath all the politics, it's people, and people are relate to people in very strong relationship ways. So Margery, let's look at Ukraine for a moment, because I'm sure you have activities there, and how have you managed with your people that are in that region, and what has been the impact on the kinds of advice that you have offered?
Well, I think there's this is a very complex situation, or complex question to answer in a lot of ways, because there's different parts of this. There's the companies that are doing business currently in Russia that are making decisions about whether they stay or go and how they exit the market. And some of them have been there a very long time, and unwinding operations is not as simple as saying we're leaving, because they also have loyal employees on the ground. They have assets that their shareholders are worried about, but they want to do the right thing. So part of this is being organized to give them the best advice we can about how to move forward, how to exit the market. Some of the countries we work in are not signatories to the sanctions, and there's another complicating set of questions about how they do business and still be part of a global community, and do the right thing. And then on the Ukrainian side, there's just so much concern and, tragedy, and but there's the spirit. And so, how do you help the economy keep going and growing? How do we deal with things like food security? We have several companies in the food space, and we're trying to make sure that we can help assure a steady stream of grains and other foods that come out of Ukraine. We're working for some of the Ukrainian organizations that are trying to keep people engaged and build support in other countries for their efforts. And there's no shortage of impact for this war in everybody's daily life, really, because it affects everything from gas prices to supply chains, everything else. And so figuring out what especially companies need to do in this situation, and then how they take that forward, is very complicated.
Very difficult, very difficult. Well, to move to a somewhat lighter topic, Margery, you have written an amazing book, and I'd love you to hold it up, if you will, for our audience. And
Sure.
There it is, Roots and Wings. And Margery has made an amazing offer to everybody in the audience who would like a copy of the book. We're going to see the email, which has just come up on the screen, nkteam@apcoworldwide.com. If you email that email, Margery will send you free of charge a beautiful copy of her book. So Margery, thank you for that. We're so grateful. I want to talk about your 50-year plus marriage, because I've been married 53 years. And how did that marriage lead to your success, and your success in business lead to the long marriage and the book? Tell us all about it.
Okay, so let's start with the book, because they are intertwined. If you couldn't read the subheading of the book, it's 10 lessons of motherhood that helped me build this business. And I just want to take a minute so that people understand what the title means, Roots and Wings, because it's so much a part of APCO's history and of my personal history. It's a sign that was in my kids' bedroom as they were growing up that said there are only two lasting things of value you give your children. One is roots, and the other is wings. And as I was building APCO, a lot of people asked how you could have 35 offices in one culture globally. And I started to think that really it's roots and wings. It's having strong values as a company and a strong center that is, and then hiring the right people that you trust and that are entrepreneurial, but then you have to give them the wings to be able to grow. And I think it's been an important part of how APCO has grown. So I give you that context because when we come back to talk about how that happened, part of, I think, the strong center for me has been my family life. It has been a very important part of how I've gotten to do what I do. I have been married, it will be in 2 weeks, 56 years.
Wow.
and we have 9 grandchildren. I was going to say great grandchildren. They are great, but they're not great grandchildren. Just to be clear, I'm not that old. And then, I have 3 children, and I've been fortunate that some of my kids have been interested in the business and have been helping me as I've been growing it over time. But the reason I wrote the book was I felt like, and I really related to what you said, Lorraine, at the beginning about not having a mentor and trying to go down a path when you don't see anybody like you ahead of you, and just trying to struggle and make sure you're doing the right thing, especially when everybody's telling you it's not possible, you can't do it. But, being inherently stubborn is useful sometimes. So I wrote the book because I realized there are a lot of things I learned from motherhood that I brought to work with me when I talk about bringing my whole self to work. And there are things I learned at work that worked in reverse also. But I felt like women were never free to talk about these things. And so I wanted to write a business-focused book that celebrated the things we learned from motherhood. And that was really the idea behind the book. And when you ask for a copy, you might get a PDF of it. It might be an electronic copy. And so one way or the other, we will get you. If you prefer electronic copy, you should say that too.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I definitely prefer electronic copy. Unfortunately, I'm hooked to the electronic version of everything. Thank you so much for that beautiful offer. And so, Margery, you've done so much in the world for women already in so many ways. One of the things I'd love to talk about is Davos. And if you can just explain a little bit about Davos, you're certainly very much an iconic figure there, and what you've done for women at Davos.
Well, when I started going, it was 20 years ago, and there were about 2% women at the World Economic Forum. And there were a few of us that, thought there's got to be a better way. And most of the women came from government or NGOs and not business. And Davos is, at its heart, or the World Economic Forum, a business forum. So, in working with the staff of the forum over time, I think we have found some ways to make it more welcoming to women. But the most recent thing that we've done, in addition to all the formal programs and the focus now on gender and parity and everything, we created an event. It's not an official event, but it's one that people know about the first night. And it's for all women, not just the ones that have official badges. And ADECO and UPS and APCO sponsored this together. We've done this now, I think, 6 years. But it's an opening reception for, we call it the Women of Davos. And we have a very frank conversation about how they can get the most out of the experience and try to create a sense of community so that the women can help other women. And we usually give away some identifiable thing. Sometimes it's a scarf, sometimes it's a bag. But when you see somebody with that, they're approachable. They've been part of what you've been part of. And it really has, I've been really amazed at how many women have said that this was one of the best things they do and how it helped. Since it's the beginning, they get to meet people that help them during the week. And when they go into a session, they can go sit by this other person as if they're long lost friends because they have spent that time together. And then now the forum has, it's not enough, but they have more than 25% women. So it's been really exciting to see that happen.
Well, it certainly makes all the difference when you can connect people like that before a very impressive week like Davos and the World Economic Forum is. That's wonderful. So, Margery, I'm honored, as I said at the top of the show, to be on the International Advisory Board for APCO Worldwide. What is the purpose of that board in your mind? What does it achieve for APCO Worldwide?
So it started actually when we went into Russia, because I felt like I wasn't the greatest expert in that part of the world. I knew some things, but I really, again, I want to make sure whatever we do the best that we can do. So I invited Arthur Hartman, who had just finished his tour as U.S. ambassador in the Soviet Union at that time. If you recall, that was still the Soviet Union. to come in and be of counsel. And he did, and it was great. And then some of his former ambassador friends decided that they'd also like to come in and help us. And so it started with just a couple of people. And then the idea really caught on that in almost everything we do, because it was such a disparate amount of things we do, whether it's technology or whether it's in healthcare, which is our biggest area, or geopolitics or these other things, that expertise of the people who have actually sat in the seats of the people that you're trying to either influence or understand is an enormous benefit to your clients and for your own continuous learning for your staff. Because when Arthur was here, you could walk down the hall and learn about politics since the Marshall Plan. He was involved all those years. I mean, it was these people are walking encyclopedias or history books in their own area. And so it's something that just grew. And now we have over 100 people. And as you know, we meet monthly. We have subgroups so that they can have better interaction with our staff. And as the company has grown, this group has really been invaluable in terms of giving us guidance for growing, but also helping our clients in some very interesting situations. You know, we had somebody call up that had an immediate tax issue in a European country, and there's somebody on the advisory board who knew all the tax people and understood how you address this problem in that context.
Remarkable.
You know, so all of these things it's like speed to market, and you feel a lot more confident when you know that people who have lived that life can tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what to avoid and how to act. And so it's been a really important part of APCO's growth and development, and it's unique to us.
Yeah, I'm so honored to be on it. I learn so much every call that we have. So we have a lot of questions out there, and I've monopolized your time, so I apologize to our audience for that. Let's put up at least one or two so that we can get your answers. Olivia from San Ramon in California, how many employees does APCO Worldwide have? And how do you find your people? I think you answered this, so maybe just a brief answer.
I'll just give a very brief answer. We hit 1,000 this year, which was starting with one person. It's breathtaking to me. But we find our people wherever good people are. I mean, as I said, it's very eclectic. If you're young in your career, if you're a good writer, if you're interested in learning and not quite sure what you want to do, consulting is a great way to try different things and see if you find your passion. And so a lot of people stay on, but a lot of people go on to teach, go to law school, do other things. So we find our people a lot by referral, and just as we're better known, people approaching us.
That's wonderful. How about the next question? This one I love. How do you protect your employees when they're in difficult situations?
Well, I don't know what those difficult situations might be. I mean, obviously, if it's of their own making and it's, we try to give guidance.
I think what Paul is talking about is if they're in a country where there's a problem happening in the country geopolitically.
I think that we are, we are really on top of what's going on in that country. I don't think we've ever, I don't want to say ever, but in the 38 years that we've been doing this, I don't think we've ever put people at risk. And we usually have enough of an idea of what's in the headwinds that if we need to make alternative plans, we do. And we protect through insurance and through, other kinds of ways of taking people out of market.
Yeah, which is certainly not a pleasant thing to do. Let's put up one question more. I think we have time just for one more. Samantha from Scottsdale, can you talk about a crisis situation that was handled well and one that was not necessarily your clients, but maybe just in the world?
Yeah, I think given the limited time, it's kind of hard to do this fast. But I will say most crises, I'd say 80% are self-inflicted, that people do not have good peripheral vision about how they come across and what they do, and they're not prepared. And so the worst ones are where somebody is not prepared and they get defensive, and they don't answer quickly. They're not consistent. If you want to talk about a crisis situation that's handled well, if it's depending upon how serious it is, you want your most senior person out there. You want them prepared to, if even if they don't know something, to say, we don't know the answer to that yet, but we are pledged to be transparent. We're pledged to share the information we can. In some cases, the legal situation is such that you can't share as much as you would like. But the biggest difference between crises that are well handled and ones that are not is what happens in that first 24 hours and how well prepared you are, and whether you have standby statements, and whether you come across as really holding back and not being transparent. Because once you lose trust, it's very hard to get it back. And I call, we talk about reputation and reputational equity as being a deposit in the bank. And depending upon what you do in the good times and how you build reputational equity, it will really impact you when you have a crisis.
That's fabulous, Margery. Well, you are remarkable, and truly we could talk for hours and learn so much from you. Just please accept my thanks on behalf of all of us at EWA for taking the time to join us, and thank you for being on our program.
And Lorraine, thank you for all your help for APCO and for your advocacy for us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Well, I wish we could continue, but unfortunately our show time has come to its end. But of course, we have other shows for you and we have questions for you. And the question that I'm going to ask you is, taking off from what Margery just said, do you have a crisis communications plan? It obviously seems that this is something you need to have to get out there within the first 24 hours fast and credibly. And so let us know by sending an email to me about what your plans are should a crisis hit your organization or you personally. And of course, we have other shows coming, and one really special show coming up soon, and that is two of our Exceptional Women awardees. They are going to be Jana Ronert and Victoria Linden. Jana Ronert is the founder and executive chair of Image Skincare. I bet you use her products. I do, and they are fabulous. She is also the co-founder of Hush and Hush, which are nutraceuticals that go along with great looking skin. And Victoria Linden is the founder of Kohana Coffee, a company that she sold, and now the founder and executive chair of Alliance Strategies, which is a 5-division company, holding company that moves 20 to 30,000 people across the world to fabulous jobs, which makes them happy. These are iconic leaders who have created entrepreneurial companies of significant size and been exceptionally successful. We have a lot to learn from each of them, and I hope you'll join us on our upcoming show. In addition, please go to our YouTube channel, go to Amazon Music, go to Spotify and Apple. You'll find our podcast there. Leave a review, please. Tell me if there's any thought leaders you would like us to interview, and please join us on all our upcoming shows. Have a great week, everyone. Bye now.